Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a special guest that will be sharing one of her past projects. I'm going to let you decide if you think it is good or bad or just plain ugly. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment. It's a quote from Lynn Hill, who is a competitive rock climber. She's only 5'2", but if you look her up online, she's got these huge guns, so she's totally a badass herself. Her quote is, "Achievement is not about what you've done, but what you've gained from your experience." So, in the real estate investment industry, there are times where you are successful and your business is quite profitable. Most people consider that an achievement. But then there are times where things don't go your way, and it's that moment that you can choose to either give up or you can choose to keep going. So for those of you out there listening that feel like maybe they have been knocked down, as you pick yourself back up, make sure you acknowledge that as an achievement because you never gave up. So now on to today's episode. Yay, we have Laura Caruso. Whoop, whoop. Laura she is a RAIN member, and this is the first time I'm interviewing someone over Zoom, so hopefully we're doing everything right. But Laura, welcome. Thank you for joining us on the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast.
Thank you, Jen, for having me. Yay! I'm so excited to be a part of this podcast.
Wonderful. Give us some background about you.
Well, I am a real estate investor, obviously. We live currently in Florida, but we have moved in the past 5-6 years a couple different times from North Carolina to Pennsylvania and now in Florida. So it's given us an experience of learning some different markets along the way. We actually started our real estate investing when we were living in Pennsylvania. We completed our first couple of rehabs there. We're moving to Florida and then continuing on with our business.
Now, I remember the first time we met, we were at a conference and we had about a 30-second break and it was freezing in there. We ran outside and I think you saw that I was from Raleigh. Is that what it was?
That is correct. That's why my husband and I are like, oh, Raleigh, we know Raleigh. And we did meet at that conference in Orlando. It was that funny 30-second thing that connected us for ever since.
I know it, and I forgot it was in Orlando. I remember you had like the coolest sunglasses on. They were Ray-Bans. I will never forget it. Anyway, you were talking to me and I was like, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what you're saying. Where do I find those glasses? That's what I was thinking the whole time. we awesome. Connected on Facebook and we've stayed friends since. So today you are going to share with us one of your past projects. So let's get started. I love this. Where is this property located?
It is located on West 69th Street in Chicago, Illinois.
69. Chicago. Okay. And you are in Pinellas County, right?
Correct.
And what city exactly are you in?
It's Seminole, Florida.
That's the name of the city?
Right outside of St. Petersburg.
St. Petersburg. Okay. I have been to St. Pete a few times. I love it. So that's a little difficult. Were you living in Chicago at the time?
No, actually, I've never been to Chicago, believe it or not.
Oh my goodness. You've never set foot in this place?
No, I've never set foot in the city of Chicago, let alone the property that we actually renovated.
Oh my goodness. So give me a little bit about the property description. Tell me about the beds and baths. What year was it built? Anything special about it? Tell us a little bit about the property.
Well, the property, it is a 2-flat. And if you're not from the Chicago area, or maybe they use this term other places as well, a 2-flat is basically a duplex.
Okay.
It was a duplex. It had 5 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms total in the entire building.
Okay. So how did it split between the two houses, the two sides?
It was 3 and 1 and 2 and 1.
Gotcha. And anything crazy about the property? Like we've had projects where we had a crazy sloped driveway. Was the neighborhood a nice neighborhood? Anything just...
It's a neighborhood that we learned along the way that and we can talk about some of the things we learned, but it's not a neighborhood that is the detective that called after a break-in. He said he personally would not live there.
Oh my, yes, I will have to hear about that. So, okay, how did you find this property?
We found this property. It was through a company that they no longer do this, and it's good that they no longer do this. They were called USA Private Money. Now they just lend money. They used to match make people with deals with people that had the funds or were approved for funds to do the deal together. So they were, making this marriage. And the problem with what they did and why they stopped doing it is they ended up with a lot of inexperienced rehabbers, and then they're matching them with people with money, and then projects would go sideways. But it's through USA Private Money that they presented us the deal, and they also actually vet the deal along the way. So they're looking at the neighborhood, they're looking at the comps, they're looking at all the cost analysis, and they presented us the deal. And at the time, the numbers worked, everything looked fine with it.
So you're not there. You have the money, they have the house, and then
Correct.
Who does the renovations?
Our partner that was there in Chicago, he has the relationship with the contractor, and he was the one there on site. He was the boots on the ground.
Gotcha. So let's talk a little bit about numbers here. So what was the asking price when you saw this, or purchase price if it stayed the same?
The purchase price on the property was $68,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And then what was your estimated ARV, the after repair value?
At the time, it was $230,000.
Wow. Goodness, that is quite an investment. And then what were the estimated repairs?
The estimated repairs were $65,000.
Okay, that's not bad. My next question is, how did you finance the deal? But you financed it through this company. Is that correct?
It was hard money.
Hard money. Gotcha. And was there any interest, or what was the interest rate? Let's go there.
The interest rate was actually, the USA Private Money did not fund this deal themselves.
Oh, okay.
They have, relationships with other hard money lenders. And they kind of did this switcheroo to us at the end, which I do not appreciate. And, I can tell a lot about just the USA Private Money I would not recommend working with. But the original company, it was supposed to be about a 9%, and I think it was 2 points. And then they switched us at the end to this other company that was 11% and 1 point. Yeah, so it was a high holding cost on this. But the reason they did that is because of the closing date. This company that had the higher percentage was able to close it faster than the other company.
Wow, that is a big difference. And what was your projected timeline versus the actual timeline?
The original timeline was to be completed within 5 months.
Okay.
When we actually sold the property, we ended up holding it for 15 very, very long months.
Wow. So how long did the renovation take?
Well, it was a stop and go renovation. So we started the renovation, things were moving along fine. Everything was just going along. We bought the property. It was in February, March, we're cruising along, and then April came and we hit a standstill. And the reason we hit a standstill is because we ended up with a zoning issue. So the property being a 2-flat, it was zoned, one part was zoned residential, the other part was commercial, and it really should have been no issue. We've learned a lot along the way about how it became an issue. So in Chicago, they have aldermen, which are like councilmen. And the aldermen have a lot of power in Chicago. And basically all we needed is the alderman in that area to sign off, and it could be rezoned. Well, in the midst of this, and these are things you cannot predict whenever you're going into projects necessarily, when politics come to play. So aldermen, fine, but I guess there's some dirty aldermen in Chicago where they were getting backs of money, and all, there's a lot of that happening. A new mayor came into Chicago during this process and basically wanted to clean up all the aldermen and all the bad stuff they were doing. So at the time, all the aldermen pretty much just stopped doing anything. So they would not sign off on this rezoning. So we ended up just stopped with no way of moving forward until we finally had to go and hire an attorney. His specialty is rezoning, present to the city council our case and why it should be rezoned. And it really should have never been an issue because the entire street is residential. And in that process, we learned that the people in Chicago do not move at any sort of fast pace. Neither do the councilmen. They're not always having council meetings. So it was a several month process to get this project back on track. It wasn't back on track until September, October. So it was quite a bit of time that we were stuck.
What was the listing price once you got through all the aldermen and got everything rezoned? What was your actual listing price once you completed it?
Once we completed it, we did list it at $239.
Okay.
We were actually able to sell it for more than that.
Nice.
Because we had multiple offers in the first week. So even though the area was not maybe ideal for some, it is still ideal for others. There were people that had friends across the street or relatives across the street, and it was a good price for them. And actually the two people that bought the property, they were sisters, and one lives in the upstairs, one lives in the downstairs now. So it worked out well for them. And I'm glad we listed it before it was completed, which agents don't like to do, right? Because they like the pretty pictures at the end. And because we had held this project for so long, we had a couple copper robberies in the midst of that, had to go through insurance, had to redo some plumbing. We told our agent, no, this needs to go on the market before completion. And we're glad we did because there was still some lag time afterwards with getting the financing for the buyers where they had to work through that. If we would have waited to list it until it was completed, then we would have held it even longer.
When you had first talked to me about this project, I thought it was sitting on the market for so long. I didn't realize that the 15 months was getting it to the market. So wow. So
no, it was snatched up very quickly. It was within the first week it went to market. We had 3 different offers in that week.
That's awesome.
That people wanted to buy. We ended up, it was the lag time was just getting through the permitting, because once we went through the rezoning, we had to go back to the city and get certain things re-permitted. And again, they don't move at any type of pace. And I've learned they pretty much don't work on Fridays, nowhere near a holiday, maybe on a Monday if you're lucky. Like the whole permitting process was such a long process as well. And that's something that we didn't know going into it would be such a hassle. And it really became it added so much time onto this project. And then I get the call one day from our partner, and he tells us that the contractor went to the property and he found that there was the break-in with the copper piping. I'm like, are you kidding me? So this project at this point was already a year in. We had it for like 12 months and it was going. We're getting closer and closer. And then all of a sudden we have this happen. And had to have the insurance company come out, which is also just adds time for them to come out, to do their evaluation and determine how much they're actually going to give you. So thank goodness though for insurance. Insurance was so key in both times this happened. So it was stolen again. After the plumber redid the copper, it was stolen a second time. And there were alarms in the building at that point. There was monitors, and they broke in through, it was one of those glass like basement type of windows you would not think that somebody would break in through. That is how they got in the second time. And it was believed it was the same people that did this. And the officers that were contacted us about this, they still can't believe that they did it, because copper at this point is not really worth a whole lot, but desperate people do desperate things. And at this point in life, within the pandemic, people are even more desperate than normal.
Right. Wow, my goodness. So I bet
Yes.
I bet your partner, did you know him prior to?
We did not know him prior. I've learned through this project too, because we've had so many things just go sideways with it, But communication is so key. So if you're going to get into a JV partnership, you need to have a partner that is going to communicate and communicate often, and also not be a chicken little sky is falling type of person. You need somebody that is solution seeking. And through this all, I can say that, it was a lot of headache. It was a lot of unexpecteds, but the whole way through, having that partnership of communication and solution seeking, not just, freaking out about the problems, was what got us to the finish line. And we were finally able to sell the property.
So you did have a good relationship with this partner?
We did.
Okay, good.
There were things that just ended up being unexpected. And, really, I don't fault him for them. The things that happened along the way, it really just became unexpected. It's like the politician part of it, the break-in part of it, just things that just went awry.
Wow. Goodness.
Yes, it was quite the project. Oh my, lots of sleepless nights over it, I'm telling you.
I'm so nervous about doing a partnership, even with someone I know, just because of the whole, like disagreements and stuff like that. It just makes me nervous. Did you have a contract with this partner?
We did. We used the contracts that are through our training system.
Okay.
Invested through our real estate training. We used those contracts, made them work for what we needed to make them work for, but they were pretty much spot on. We didn't have to change a whole lot.
Very good. Awesome. Whew, just makes me nervous. Yes. All of this. So I know, how many days were you actually on market?
It was within the first week we have sold, so less than 7.
Okay. And then while you were under contract, were there any issues with inspections? This is like such a nightmare for me. I hate when inspectors go in, we'll get things pre-inspected and then they'll come in and find like crazy stuff. So were there any issues with the inspection?
There really weren't any issues with the inspection, just the normal stuff that, inspectors, they always find something. They have to justify their job, so they always find something. So there was just some little things that had to be corrected. The biggest thing for us once it was under contract is that the buyers, their financing, it took a while to get completed because of even just this day and age that we're in right now. Things are taking longer on the mortgage side. And so that kind of kicked back probably an extra month.
Wow.
While they were working through what they needed to get done on their side.
So let's get to the final numbers here. Your estimated repairs, you said around 65,000. So what were your actual repairs?
They were 78.
Well, that's not bad.
A bit, but with what had to be done, it is what it is.
I don't think that's bad at all. And then what was your interest? Because that's going to add up when you have a property for 15 months. What was the interest you had to pay?
It does add up. And we've learned through working with 2 different hard money lenders that they do interest differently. One we worked with where they charge you for the entire amount of what they're lending you from the beginning, even if you have not pulled a draw on your rehab. Well, thank goodness for us, we didn't pull a draw on this rehab. We had to put money up front for the contractor to get started, and then we got shut down so fast that we didn't pull anything from the draw. So we were just paying interest on the original purchase price for 6 to 7 months of it. So that was at least saving grace. It wasn't a whole lot. Like at first it was about $500 to $600 for those months. So it wasn't, as painful as if it would have been for the entire amount. The interest we paid total was about $12,500. And because it wasn't a high dollar amount on the purchase price or the rehab, that benefited us. If we would have had a property that was obviously higher, that could have been very, very painful.
All right. So we had the purchase price of 68, actual repairs were 78. The interest was 12,500. And then what was the sales price?
We sold it at $250,000.
Woo!
Yeah, so it went up, but part of that was that they also needed a credit to the buyer. So that is partially why we agreed upon that amount, so that it could work for them as well because of the type of financing that they were doing.
So holding it, all those 15 months, it just actually probably made the property value go up a little bit too, just because of time. That's awesome.
It actually did. So that was one of the pluses out of the whole experience.
Well, don't feel bad. We have a property that we've held on to for 2 years and it's getting listed in about I think 10 days. So don't feel bad. It happens.
That's exciting. I know how exciting that is after holding a property that long. You feel like you can't even believe you get to the end of it.
And that property was broken into 3 times. Ugh. Anyway, all right.
Thank goodness for insurance.
Exactly. And insurance came through. I'll tell you that we love our insurance guys. So on this project on 6th and 9th Street, right? 6th and 9th what?
Yep, 69th Street.
What was your total profit?
So when all was said and done, there was still a profit. Unbelievably, I don't even know how. It wasn't a lot, but there still was a profit of about $950.
$950 in the green. I love it. Yes. Whoop, whoop is right. Wow. So, I mean, that's still a positive.
It is. After everything we had to do, I mean, we had costs that also added up with the attorneys, because having an attorney having to do everything he did that and paying the city to get this thing rezoned, that was like a $10,000 hit right there.
So going back to my quote from earlier today, where achievement is not about what you've done, but what you've gained from your experience. After completing this project, what are your main takeaways?
My main takeaways are that you definitely need to be aware of the politics of the area you're investing. That is a huge thing to know. And really, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, we did not know Chicago the way that we needed to really know Chicago. And we learned that lesson. If you're going to invest somewhere that you're not living, it's not your backyard, you better know exactly what you're getting into from the get-go. And also knowing that you need to have a strong partnership. If you're going to have this JV agreement or JV relationship, that you need to have somebody that's going to communicate, that's going to be a solution seeker whenever problems arise, because they do. Every project just brings out different problems. There's no smooth sailing project completely. It might not be as big of problems as we occurred with this property, but there's always something. So that's my 2 takeaways. I think those are huge in really like from this project and what we learned.
So will you do any future projects differently after completing this one?
Absolutely. We will know our market very, very well inside and out, because even street to street, there is a complete difference in some places. I know here in St. Petersburg, that's how it is. Every street kind of has its own story. So you really need to know where you're purchasing this property and the dynamics of the area.
So true. And what about a partnership? Are you going to ever do a joint venture again?
We are working with partners at the moment to actually do a different type of purchase. We don't really want to rehab at the moment. We're looking into short-term rentals with partners. And these are things that are not going to necessarily need a whole lot of work. So we still will be doing partnerships, but they're just going to look differently. And we're also looking into apartment complex purchasing. So that is also going to require partnerships, but it's not the same type of deal of what we've done. And we performed 2 JV deals with the same partner. And then we had another JV deal with someone from Harrisburg. And they've taught us just different lessons on what we need to be aware of when we do go forward with partnerships, even if it's not into rehabbing a house. But if we're going to purchase vacation rentals or apartments, that we need to be aware of certain things.
So, I'm just going to go into this for a second because I get so nervous. The thought of having half my business be in the hands of somebody else, I'm just one of those control freaks. So how do you establish that? I know you guys do a contract and things, and you also talked about communication is key. So what do you have in place to protect you in a joint venture?
That is one of the things that we've learned through this, that you really need to know who you're getting in a joint venture with, because if you're the one bringing the money to the table, and if something does go wrong, if this project would have ended up not in the green, the other person will still have to bring money to the table to make, if it's a 50-50 agreement or whatever the agreement is, and there's a loss, you need to make sure that the other person still can bring money to the table. Because if you're going into a partnership with somebody that's broke, that's not going to work, because you as the money partner are then stuck paying for everything.
Well, that is some great advice. Thank you for that. Because even though I still don't think I will get into a, a joint venture anytime soon,
Yes.
but thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that I was able to share this story and hopefully shed some light on some things to be aware of as go into rehabbing or partnerships or, joint venturing in a different area that you are not familiar with.
That's so wild to me. So I asked our listeners at the beginning for them to decide if it was good, bad, or just plain ugly. I think this is really good because you learned so much from this and you still came out in the green just a little. I mean, that's a nice little dinner and night away for two. Probably going through it, you thought it was pretty ugly, but in the end, you had those two sisters able to move in together, to be together, and you provided a safe home for them. So I think that's awesome. And plus, there is probably copper everywhere throughout Chicago right now from stealing it, stealing it from your house. So to wrap up my podcast, what I want to do is it takes a total badass to go through a situation of what you did. So I want to know what makes you a badass. And I use the word badass as an acronym. And for the B in badass, I want to know a book that has made a huge difference in your life.
Ooh, that's a tough one because I am kind of I love books and I love reading books. I read books.
I do too.
I just can't get enough of them because there's so much to learn. But I have to say the first book that I actually ever read for personal development was years ago, and it kind of started me on this path of just loving books and loving to learn, was The Compound Effect.
I love it. That book got me to stop watching TV, The Compound Effect.
Yes, it's so good. And that really started my path of just loving to read and loving to learn. And it taught me so much just in that one book. And I've seen him speak in person. And he's just as good as that book. He's awesome.
That is awesome. That's a good one. All right. So the A in badass, the first A, advice. What is the best piece of advice you ever received and who gave it to you?
Oh, that's a good question. And I have to say, I've gotten a lot of great advice from the real estate network that we are a part of. They're just some amazing people and they're so helpful. But one of our network friends, his name's Michael Flint. He has saved my sanity this past year between this project and some other projects that along the way, there's just stumbling blocks. And he reminded me that, it may seem really, really tough right now, but 5 years from now, looking back, it really is just going to be like a little blimp bleep on everything else that is happening. And you're going to be so far along from where this moment is. You're not going to be stuck there forever. At the moment, you feel like you're going to be stuck forever, but he reminded me of that it will be okay. We will get through this. And 5 years from now, this really isn't going to matter.
I love it. That's great advice. All right. The D in badass is drive. What drives you to be successful?
Just making an impact, truly making an impact. And just even with this project, it feels awesome to have renovated this house and provided the two sisters a safe place to live, a quality place to live. And then also making an impact just within the community and the ways that we can help, whether it is through renovating or helping our fellow investor friends become successful. Making that impact is just really what drives me.
I love it. I love following you, and you definitely do make an impact. The A in badass is aspiration. What is a goal you are currently working on?
So we're working, as I mentioned earlier, with some partners in the area on finding awesome apartment deals, which is not easy to do in this area because our market is on fire. But then also learning that, got to be hesitant about just jumping into other markets without really researching them, as we've learned through this project. And working on building up that single or short-term rental portfolio. So those things are what we're aspiring at the moment to do.
That is one of my goals right now too. We're looking for a beach condo to make an Airbnb. Love it. All right. So the first S in badass is systems. What are systems you have in place that help you achieve success?
I think my morning routine really helps me to get centered and focused. That's one system that I know when I don't do this morning routine, it just creates chaos in my day. And I love to read, as I mentioned, in the morning for just even 10 minutes. I set my alarm, reading, getting my head straight with being grateful for 10 things for the day. Some days I write them down. Sometimes I don't, just depending on time. And then meditation. I think starting the day just quietly and peacefully really sets just a different tone for the entire day. And then I think the other thing, the system that has helped me a ton, and I hope it has helped others as well, is creating a monthly meetup for local investors where we get together and help each other in whatever way we can. And also, bringing someone in to present something that can be of value to the group. I find that to be a system that has helped me a lot.
I love that. I'm part of a couple local meetup groups. It is so good to have that connection with people and so smart. And you didn't have one in your area, so you created one yourself.
I did. And thanks actually for your great suggestion to do so. So I appreciate it.
And you picked a wine place, which is even better, right?
Absolutely. It's I laugh and call it my moonlighting gig because I do serve wine there once a week. It's kind of my fun little adult getaway.
Nice. I did not know that. All right. So the last S and my last question is, what does success mean to you?
Success means to me is really to look around and see. One of my favorite quotes is that, rising tide lifts all ships. And I want to look around and see all the ships lifting, all the people, the investors, the fellow network that we've created, where people are all reaching their goals and it's not competition, where we're really in it together. And it's very cool to see that happen. And one of the things that from having this monthly meetup and watching it grow for over the year, I find looking back and looking to where we are now, super exciting. It's grown. And to me, that's success.
Well, you are fantastic. Thanks for sharing your past project with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yay! This has been so much fun. All the listeners out there, that is all. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery, and don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.